Hi. I thought today I'd go over some of the procedures that I took in creating a new version of a shot I took many, many years ago. You see, I think this was perhaps 10 years ago, and lately I've been going through some of my old files with some of the new methods and new techniques that I've learned to see if I could improve on the original rendition of them. This particular photo was taken on what's known as Hinkley Lake. It is in the detached Hinkley Reservation of the Cleveland Metro Parks and is located approximately about halfway between Cleveland and Akron. I went there on a very early morning, weekday morning, when I knew there would be really no one around. At this lake they have a canoe livery, and the time of year was, I would say in September, before the leaves changed, but while the coolness of the morning fog was coming in. Prior to this, I got a really moody picture of a blue heron in the same location, but afterwards I noticed the sun was starting to come up. The fog was starting to rise and just become a glowing mist, and I saw these canoes in the canoe livery, and no one around, so I had my way with them. I took them over to the Pebble Beach and arranged them in what I thought would be more or less an artistic arrangement. And at that point, the sun came up on the horizon. And at that time of year, the horizon is approximately at the equator. So the sun was coming out pretty much due east, and it was going across the lake, and there was not a blue sky. Because of this fog layer, there was a yellow glow in the sky, and gradually, as the water became more and more dominant, it became a different shade, perhaps even going towards a green. But the luster of this glow in the sky illuminated the watercraft in such a strange way that, well, you'll see the results. Let's get into it. Okay, I'd like to show you the comparison of what I started with 10 years ago. This was probably shot, my guess is, with a Canon 10D, which was the second digital camera I actually owned from Canon. I had one of the original Rebels. But what you see on the right is a version that I prepared yesterday, and I provided it to a very good friend of mine by the name of Susan Shipley, who is an accomplished artist in Philadelphia. More or less trying to convey to her that I'm sort of starting to maybe absorb some of her appreciation for color and form and that sort of thing. Admittedly, this is all done in the computer, but the question coming back to me was, well, how did you do this? She seemed rather enthusiastic about the results, so I thought what I should do is let her know, because I cannot take the credit for the technology. I will take the credit for the thought process and the invention of putting everything together in the way that it was done. So what you see on the left is the original raw file as it came out of the camera, and as you can see, it's in the normal 2:3 crop ratio. And what you see on the right is the finished result I came up with yesterday that went through. Let's just go through the major things that I'm going to show you now. First of all, in the Develop module of Lightroom, I did what I could to optimize the tonal representation of everything. Also there, I used some graduated filters to get the effect that I wanted in the sky. I changed the white balance. I went into the color manipulation a little bit to bring back some of that blue in the cross rails of the foreground canoe and in the seat of the far away canoe. And pretty much everything else went along for the ride. I then went over to a topaz plug-in that allowed me to just get just a touch of the glow of the star where it was shining on the foreground canoe. And then I went into another topaz plug-in that allowed me to get just a mild oil painting effect. Okay, in between those two excursions, I would have to say that I probably did a little tuning in the tonal ranges and in the colors every time I came back to Lightroom. So what we have here is the result of Lightroom, two topaz plugins, one that provided the star effect and one that provided the painting effect. Okay, so now I'm going to go right into Lightroom and show you how this was done. Okay, we are back now in Lightroom, and I'm going to get out of this mode where we're looking at two different versions, and I'm going to strictly concentrate on the raw file. So let's go back to that, select the raw file, and go to the develop module. If you didn't have any imagination, you might quickly come to the opinion that this is a pretty nasty looking picture. There have been absolutely no changes made in the develop module for this. So usually the first thing I do is go to camera calibration. I'm going to go to camera calibration now, and I'm going to pick the very latest process because I want those controls that I'm used to in version 5 of Lightroom, which makes things much easier and much more controlled. Under Profile, I'm going down to Camera Landscape. Although I converted this to a DGN file, the original CR2 file from the Canon 10D, all of those metadata settings were carried forward into the DGN. It knows that I shot this with a Canon 10D, and when I selected Camera Landscape, I told Lightroom to correct the tonality, the color, and all that as if I were shooting a JPEG in that 10D and set the camera mode to landscape. So we got a head start in getting something that's at least not so dull and boring. The next thing that I will usually do is go in and crop the photo, at least a way to start. I will crop the photo and get it to something that will not influence the histogram so much. You see, what's influencing the histogram now is all of this darkness and all of this lightness. Of course, this highlight right here will pop up in the histogram there. But let's see what cropping can do for us. I am going to, I don't need that much sky, and I certainly don't need the watercraft badge. So I'll go to the edge of that, and I don't need anywhere near that amount of foreground, but I do want to preserve the gravel that is in here. This is not a permanent change. I can come back and adjust this later if I wish. So I will just accept that by closing it. And now we have a really different view of this. If we go back and look, the appearance is way different. There's a lot less distraction, more concentration on the form rather than the setting, which is what I wanted. I wanted the form, these curved diagonal lines. Okay. Next thing that I will go to, and I probably should have done this first, was to go to lens corrections. Shot this with a standard Canon lens. It was a L lens, a 17-40 wide angle at f4, and I set it at 40 millimeters.